My name is Walter, though most people just call me Grandpa now. I'm 67 years old, and on a day when I expected nothing more than a simple family visit, just a warm meal and a place to sit, everything shifted. I walked into a room I once helped build, a room where every memory had my fingerprints on it. And yet, the moment I stepped inside, I felt like a stranger. They looked at me, my own blood, and with a laugh so careless it stung, one of them said, "You should be grateful we even let you in." In that moment, I realized something terrible. The people I had sacrificed everything for now saw me as a guest, or worse, a burden. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that I came with an envelope that would flip the entire room upside down. One letter, one signature, one truth that would wipe every smirk off their faces. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Your support turns these lonely stories into a community where none of us sit alone. And if you're new here, do me a small favor. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. You're not just joining a channel. You're joining a family that knows what betrayal feels like, and what strength looks like afterward. Now, let me tell you what was inside that envelope. But first, you need to understand how I got there. It started 3 days before that dinner. I was in my apartment, and when I say apartment, I mean a single room above Chen's laundromat on Brookfield Avenue. The kind of place where the smell of detergent seeps through the floorboards and the walls are so thin you can hear Mrs. Kowalski arguing with her cat at 2 in the morning. Not exactly where I thought I'd be at 67. The phone rang. That cheap prepaid flip phone Gertrude had given me after everything changed. "Easier for you to use, Dad," she'd said. What she meant was cheaper, no internet, no apps, just calls and texts. Like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with real technology. I flipped it open. "Hello? Dad, it's Gertrude." No, "Hi." No, "How are you?" Just my name, stated like a fact she was confirming. "Gertrude, sweetheart, how are you? How's Darian? I haven't heard from... We're having Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. Don't be late." I felt my chest tighten. Not from my heart, the doctors say that's fine now, mostly, but from something else. Hope, maybe, or the memory of what hope used to feel like. "Sunday dinner? At the house?" "Yes, at the house." Her voice had that edge, that tone she'd use when Darian was younger and hadn't done his homework. Impatient, annoyed that she had to explain. That's wonderful. Should I bring anything? I could pick up a dessert or just be on time." Silence. "Gertrude." "What?" I wanted to ask her so many things. I wanted to ask why it had been 4 months since I'd seen my grandchildren. I wanted to ask why my birthday had passed without a single phone call. I wanted to ask why the house, my house, the one I'd bought in 1989 with money I'd saved for 15 years, now had her name on the deed, and I lived above a laundromat. But I didn't ask any of those things. "I'll be there," I said. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat on the edge of my bed, which was also my couch and my dining table depending on the time of day, and I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Sunday dinner. 4 months of silence, and now, suddenly, an invitation. I should have known better. I spent the next 2 days preparing like I was going to a job interview. I ironed my blue button-down shirt, the one I used to wear to church back when I had a reason to go. The iron I'd bought from the thrift store didn't heat evenly, so I had to go over the collar 3 times. My hands shook. Not from age, from something I couldn't quite name. I polished my shoes. Black leather Oxfords I'd owned for 20 years. They were scuffed, the soles worn thin, but they were the nicest thing I had left. Saturday night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about what I'd say to Darian. He'd be 13 now. Growing fast. Maybe he'd gotten taller. Maybe he'd want to hear about the model trains I used to build with my father. I still had photos of those trains, somewhere, buried in one of the boxes I'd packed in a hurry when Gertrude and Cyril told me I couldn't live in my own home anymore. "For your safety, Dad. You had a stroke. You can't be alone. That's what they'd said. What they'd meant was, you're weak now, and we can take what we want. But I didn't think that then. I didn't think that until much later. Sunday morning, I got dressed at 4 p.m., even though dinner wasn't until 6. I stood in front of the mirror, a small cracked thing hanging on the bathroom door, and I barely recognized myself. When did I get so old? When did my shoulders curve forward like this? When did my eyes get so tired? I touched my face. The stubble I'd shaved that morning was already growing back, gray and patchy. My hair, what was left of it, was combed neatly to the side. I looked respectable. I looked clean. I looked like a man trying very hard to be worth something. And then I reached into the drawer beside the sink and pulled out the envelope. It was manila, standard size, the kind you'd use to mail documents or tax forms. It was worn at the edges because I'd been carrying it with me everywhere for 3 weeks. Just in case the moment came. Inside were papers, documents, proof. I didn't open it. I already knew what was inside. I'd memorized every word, every number, every signature. I slipped it into the inner pocket of my jacket, a brown corduroy jacket I'd bought in 1998. It still fit, barely. And then I left. The bus ride took 40 minutes. I used to drive. Had a Buick LeSabre, 2005, silver, ran like a dream. I'd bought it used, paid cash, kept it maintained. Gertrude sold it 3 weeks after I signed the power of attorney. You don't need a car anymore, Dad. It's just one more thing to worry about. Now I took the bus. Route 47 to Maple Street, then transfer to Route 12. Get off at Oakwood Drive and walk the remaining 6 blocks. The neighborhood hadn't changed. Tree-lined streets, big houses with 2-car garages and basketball hoops in the driveways, American flags on porches. The smell of someone grilling burgers drifted through the air. I used to live here. I used to belong here. Now I felt like a trespasser. I stood outside the house at 5:58 p.m. The lawn was freshly mowed. Gertrude always kept it perfect. The flower beds were bursting with tulips and daisies. My late wife Margaret had planted the original bulbs 30 years ago. I wondered if Gertrude even knew that. The house was a 2-story colonial. White siding, black shutters, red front door. I'd painted that door myself in 2003. Margaret had picked the color. It's cheerful, Walter. Inviting. I stood at the end of the driveway and stared at that door. For a moment, I thought about turning around, getting back on the bus, going back to my room above the laundromat and pretending this invitation had never happened. But I didn't, because I had the envelope, and because, God help me, part of me still hoped that maybe, this was Gertrude's way of saying sorry, of letting me back in, of remembering that I was her father. I walked up the steps, I rang the doorbell, and I waited. The door opened. It wasn't Gertrude, it was Cyril, my son-in-law, 43 years old, real estate developer, drove a black Range Rover, wore cologne that cost more than my monthly rent. He looked at me the way you'd look at a solicitor you didn't ask for. "You're early," he said. I checked my watch. 6:01 p.m. I'm sorry, I thought. Come in. He stepped aside, not quite enough, so I had to turn my body to squeeze past him. The house smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. Margaret used to make that same dish every Sunday. I wondered if Gertrude remembered. I wondered if she was using Margaret's recipe, or if this was just coincidence. "Everyone's in the dining room," Cyril said, already walking away. I stood in the foyer. This used to be my foyer. That mirror on the wall? I'd hung it. The small table with the ceramic bowl for keys? I'd built that in my garage. The hardwood floors? I'd refinished them myself, on my hands and knees, in the summer of 1995. But none of it felt like mine anymore. I walked toward the dining room. The voices hit me before I saw them. Laughter, loud, comfortable. The kind of laughter that happens when people feel at home. I stepped into the doorway and the laughter stopped. Not slowly, not politely, just stopped. 8 faces turned toward me. Gertrude sat at the head of the table. My seat. The seat I'd sat in for 34 years. She wore a cream-colored blouse and her hair was pulled back in a sleek bun. She looked elegant. Successful. Nothing like the little girl who used to sit on my lap and ask me to read Goodnight Moon 17 times in a row. Next to her was Cyril, settling back into his chair. On the other side, Yvette, my youngest daughter, 39. Softer than Gertrude, rounder in the face, kinder in the eyes. She gave me a small smile. Tentative. Like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. Beside Yvette was her husband, Hillel. Quiet man, accountant. We'd never talked much, but he'd never been unkind to me either. Across from them, Yvonne, Cyril's sister. Sharp-featured. Always looked like she was calculating something. She didn't smile at me. Just took a sip of her wine. And then there was Thelma, Cyril's mother. 71 years old. Gray hair cut short in that way older women do when they've decided they're done trying to impress anyone. She wore a floral blouse and too much blush. She saw me and her eyebrows lifted. "Oh," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He actually came." A few uncomfortable chuckles around the table. And finally, I saw them. My grandchildren. Darian, 13, tall for his age, dark hair like his father. He glanced at me, then immediately looked down at his plate. Uriel, 11, Gertrude's second son, quieter, sensitive. He gave me a small wave. I waved back. And Hillel Jr., we called him Junior, 8 years old, Yvette's boy. He grinned at me. "Hi, Grandpa." That grin almost broke me. "Hi, buddy," I managed. Gertrude stood. "Dad, you made it." Her tone was pleasant. Too pleasant. The way a hostess greets a distant acquaintance at a charity event. "Of course," I said. "Thank you for inviting me." "Well," she said, smoothing her blouse, "we thought it was time." Time. 4 months. 4 months of living 6 miles away and not being invited, not being called, not being asked how I was doing or if I needed anything. But sure, it was time. "Have a seat," Gertrude said. She gestured. Not to the head of the table. Not to the seat next to her. To the far end. The opposite end. The seat usually reserved for extra guests or children who weren't old enough to sit with the adults. I looked at that chair. I looked at my seat, the seat I'd sat in for decades, now occupied by my daughter. And something inside me shifted. Not anger, not yet. Just clarity. I walked to the far end of the table and sat down. The chair creaked under my weight. Yvette passed me a plate. "Here, Dad, I'll make you a plate." "Thank you, sweetheart." She spooned mashed potatoes, green beans, and a small piece of chicken onto my plate. It was half the portion everyone else had. I didn't say anything. Conversation resumed. Cyril was talking about a property he'd just closed. $3.2 million. Cash buyer. Easiest deal I've done all year. Yvonne leaned in. "I told you that neighborhood was going to blow up. I told you." Gertrude laughed. "You did. You absolutely did." They talked around me. Through me. Like I wasn't there. I took a bite of chicken. It was good. Perfectly seasoned. But it tasted like dust in my mouth. Then Thelma spoke. "So, Walter." I looked up. She was staring at me with that tight smile people use when they're about to say something they think is polite but really isn't. "How's the new place?" New place. She made it sound like I'd chosen it. Like I'd voluntarily downsized to a room with a hot plate and a shared bathroom down the hall. "It's fine," I said quietly. "Good, good." She took a sip of wine. "You know, it's really wonderful that Gertrude and Cyril have been so generous. Taking care of everything for you. Not every family does that." Generous. I felt the envelope in my jacket pocket. A small weight against my chest. "Yes," I said slowly. "They've been very involved." Cyril smirked. Gertrude's expression didn't change. Yvette shifted uncomfortably. And then Thelma said it. She leaned back in her chair, fork in hand, and said with a light, careless laugh, "You should really be grateful, Walter. A lot of people your age end up in state facilities. You're lucky they let you stay close." Let me stay close. The room went quiet for just a second. Not because anyone was offended, but because they were all waiting to see if I'd agree. I looked around the table, at Gertrude, who wouldn't meet my eyes, at Cyril, who was chewing his food with the confidence of a man who believed he'd done nothing wrong, at Thelma, who was smiling like she'd just said something wise, and I thought, this is it. This is the moment. I reached into my jacket. My fingers found the envelope. I could feel every eye on me now, confused, curious. I pulled it out slowly, set it on the table in front of me. It sat there, unassuming, worn. Cyril stopped chewing. Gertrude's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" Yvonne asked. I looked at Gertrude. "This," I said quietly, "is something I think everyone here should see." "Dad," Gertrude said, voice sharp, "we're eating. Whatever this is, it won't take long." I slid the envelope toward the center of the table. Cyril's jaw tightened, and for the first time in 4 months, I felt like I had something they didn't. The truth. If you want to know what's inside that envelope, and trust me, it's going to change everything, hit that subscribe button right now. The next chapter is where the truth comes out, and it's brutal. Don't miss it. The envelope sat in the center of the table like a grenade with the pin pulled. Nobody moved. Gertrude stared at it, then at me. Her face had gone pale under her makeup. "Dad, this isn't the time or place. When would be the time, Gertrude?" My voice came out steady, calm. I barely recognized it as my own. "Because I've been trying to talk to you for 4 months. You don't answer my calls. You don't visit. You sent me a text on my birthday. 3 words. 'Happy birthday, Dad.' No period. Like you were in a hurry to finish typing." Yvette's eyes widened. "Gertrude, you didn't. Can we not do this right now?" Gertrude's voice went high, thin. She looked around the table, appealing to everyone. "He's confused. He gets confused sometimes. I'm not confused." I reached for the envelope. My hands didn't shake anymore. That's the funny thing about finally telling the truth. Your body stops betraying you. I opened it, pulled out the first document. It was a bank statement. My bank statement. Or what used to be my bank statement before Gertrude's name appeared on the account. I slid it across the table towards Cyril. "Read the date," I said. He didn't pick it up, just glanced at it. "March 15th. Read the balance." His jaw clenched. He didn't read it aloud, so I did. $347,862.19. I looked around the table. Yvette's mouth had fallen open. Thelma had stopped eating. Even the boys were quiet. That was my retirement. 43 years working for the county. Pension, savings, the life insurance payout when Margaret died. Gertrude stood up. "Dad, you signed papers. You gave us permission to manage my finances, not to drain them." I pulled out another paper. "This is from June 1st, 3 months later. The balance was $843. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. "Where?" Yvette's voice cracked. She cleared her throat. "Where did it go?" I pulled out the next document. A stack of credit card receipts. I spread them on the table like playing cards. Tuscany. 2 weeks, 5-star hotel. $18,000. I pointed to another receipt. Mercedes GLE 450. $73,000. Another. Rolex Submariner. $14,000. Another. Kitchen renovation. $68,000. Darian was staring at his mother. "Mom." Gertrude's face had gone from pale to red. "Those were investments. Quality of life improvements. You weren't able to make those decisions, so we made them for you. For me." I let out a laugh. It sounded bitter even to my own ears. The only thing you bought for me was a $40 prepaid phone and a bus pass." Cyril stood now too. His chair scraped loud against the floor. "You had a stroke. You signed the power of attorney willingly. I signed it because I trusted you." My voice broke on that word. Trust. "I signed it because Gertrude told me it was just a precaution, that nothing would change, that I'd still have access to everything." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. "Do you remember what you said to me in the hospital? You held my hand. You cried. You said, 'Dad, I'll take care of everything. I promise.'" Her eyes were wet now, but not with remorse, with anger, with the fury of someone caught. I did take care of it. I took care of the bills, the taxes, the— "You sold my house." Those 4 words landed like stones in still water. Yvette gasped. "What?" I pulled out the final document, the property deed, or rather, the property sale record. Sold. June 23rd, $782,000. I looked at Gertrude. "I bought that house in 1989 for $98,000. Your mother and I saved for 15 years. We painted every room ourselves, built the deck, planted every tree in that yard." My voice shook now. I couldn't stop it. "And you sold it. Didn't tell me. Didn't ask me. You just sold it. You couldn't live there anymore." Gertrude's voice cracked. "You had a stroke. You needed care." I needed my daughter. The words came out as a whisper, but they filled the room. Thelma tried to speak. "Now, Walter, I'm sure there's a reasonable—" "Where's the money?" Yvette interrupted. She was looking at Gertrude now, her face hard. "Dad's living above a laundromat. Where's the money from the house?" Gertrude opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Cyril jumped in. "It went into a managed care account, for his future needs." "Show me the account." Everyone turned to look at me. "Show me the account," I repeated. "Right now. Pull it up on your phone. Show me this managed care account." Cyril's face darkened. "We're not doing this here." "Then where? When?" I stood up. My legs felt weak, but I stayed upright. "When were you going to tell me the truth? When were you going to admit that you didn't put me in that apartment to keep me safe? You did it because it was cheap, because you could pocket the difference." "That's not—" Gertrude started. "I know it's not there." My voice rose. I never yell. Never. But something in me broke. "I know there's no managed care account. I know because I hired a lawyer 3 weeks ago. I requested all the financial records. Every transaction. Every transfer. Every withdrawal." I looked around the table, at the faces staring at me in shock. "And you know what I found? Nothing. No care account, no trust fund, nothing except your mortgage being paid off, your credit cards being paid off, your cars, your vacations, your jewelry." Uriel started crying. Quiet, confused tears. Darian put his head in his hands. Junior looked at his mother. "Mama, is Grandpa lying?" Yvette's face crumpled. "No, baby, I don't think he is." If your heart is pounding right now, hit that like button. Because what happens next, when the second envelope comes out, that's when everything really falls apart. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Gertrude was pacing now, back and forth behind her chair like a caged animal. "You don't understand. You don't understand what it's like having to manage everything. The bills, the insurance, the medications. I had one medication. For blood pressure. $12 a month." She ignored me. "And you were getting forgetful. You'd call me 3 times a day asking the same questions. You left the stove on. Twice. You could have burned the house down. Once." My voice was quiet. "I left it on once, and it wasn't even lit. The pilot was off. You were declining." She stopped pacing, faced me. Her eyes were hard now, defensive. "We made the difficult decisions that you couldn't make. That's what children do for their aging parents." "No." I shook my head. What you do for aging parents is care for them. Visit them. Make sure they're not eating expired food from discount bins because they can't afford groceries. Thelma's fork clattered against her plate. Gertrude, is that true? Gertrude's silence was answer enough. I reached into my jacket again. Cyril's eyes widened. What else do you have? The truth. I pulled out a second, smaller envelope. This one was white, business-sized, sealed. I held it up. This came from my lawyer, filed 2 weeks ago. I opened it slowly, deliberately. It's a revocation of power of attorney, signed by me, witnessed by a notary and my doctor, Dr. Patel. You remember him, Gertrude? He did my follow-up exam last month, the one you said I didn't need to go to. Her face went slack. Dr. Patel certified that I am fully mentally competent. No cognitive decline, no impairment. The stroke was minor. Completely recovered. I pulled out the single sheet of paper inside, which means every financial decision you made on my behalf after my recovery, you made without legal authority. That's not how it works, Cyril stammered. It's exactly how it works. I looked at him. I also filed a fraud report with the district attorney's office. The room erupted. Gertrude screamed, "You did what?" Cyril slammed his hand on the table. "You're bluffing. Elder financial abuse is a felony in this state." My voice cut through the chaos. Calm. Cold. Penalties include full restitution, fines up to $100,000 and up to 4 years in prison. Yvonne stood up. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know any of this. Sit down, Yvonne. I didn't even look at her. My eyes were locked on Gertrude. You knew, and you helped. I didn't help with anything. Yvonne's voice went shrill. I pulled out my phone, the cheap flip phone Gertrude gave me. But it did have one useful feature. It stored text messages. I scrolled, found what I was looking for, read aloud. From Yvonne to Gertrude, April 2nd. He called me today asking about the house. What should I tell him? Response from Gertrude. Tell him it's in probate or something. Tell him we're handling it. He won't remember anyway. Yvonne's face drained of color. May 14th. Yvonne to Gertrude. Do you think we should at least get him a better place? That apartment is depressing. Gertrude's response. He's fine. The less we spend on him, the more we have for the kid's future. Yvette stood up so fast her chair fell backward. For the kids? You stole from Dad for the kids? Gertrude's face twisted. I didn't steal. I reallocated. Stop. Hillel, quiet, mild-mannered Hillel, spoke for the first time. His voice was ice. Just stop talking, Gertrude. Darian was openly crying now. Uriel, too. Junior had run to his mother, buried his face in her side. I felt a crack in my chest. This wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to hurt my grandchildren, but they needed to see. They needed to know. There's one more thing. I pulled out the final document. I filed this yesterday, a new will. Cyril went very still. Everything I have left, which isn't much thanks to you, goes into an irrevocable trust. The beneficiaries are Darian, Uriel, and Junior. Darian's head snapped up. They'll receive it when they turn 25, not before, and not one penny goes to their parents. I looked at each of my grandsons. I'm sorry you have to hear this. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this, but I can protect your future, and I will. Gertrude's face had gone from red to white. You can't. I can. And I did. I picked up my papers, slid them back into the envelope. You have 48 hours. For what? Cyril's voice was barely a whisper. To return every cent that's left. Open accounting of where every dollar went. Full restitution. If you do that, I'll ask the DA to drop the investigation. I stood. My legs felt stronger now. If you don't, I'll see you in court, and then in the newspapers, because elder abuse makes for very compelling headlines. I walked toward the door. Behind me, chaos. Gertrude sobbing, Cyril shouting, Yvette trying to calm everyone down, Thelma demanding someone explain what just happened. I stopped at the doorway, turned back. Oh, and Gertrude? She looked up, mascara running down her face. I'm not confused. I never was. I just trusted you, and that was my mistake. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in 4 months, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Instead, I walked. 6 blocks to the bus stop, then kept walking. Past the elementary school where Gertrude and Yvette used to play on the swings. Past the park where I taught Darian to ride a bike when he was 5. Past the coffee shop where Margaret and I went every Sunday morning for 30 years. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't the same person who used to walk these streets. I ended up at St. Augustine's. The church was locked. It was after 7, but I sat on the steps outside. The stone was cold through my pants. The street lights flickered on one by one as the sky turned purple, then black. My phone rang. Yvette. I stared at her name on the screen for 3 rings before I answered. Dad. Her voice was thick with tears. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know. I know you didn't, sweetheart. I should have known. I should have asked questions. I should have visited you. I should have... She broke down, sobbing. I closed my eyes. Yvette, listen to me. This isn't your fault. But I didn't stop them. You didn't know there was anything to stop. I took a breath. Your sister is very good at making people believe what she wants them to believe. She always has been. Silence. Then, what's going to happen now? I don't know. Will she go to jail? I thought about that, really thought about it. Not if she returns the money. And if she doesn't, then yes, probably. More silence. Then Yvette said something that surprised me. Good. Yvette. No, Dad. Good. What she did to you, what they did to you. It's evil. It's theft. It's abuse. Her voice hardened, and I'm ashamed that I didn't see it. We sat in silence for a moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end, trying to compose herself. Where are you? She asked. St. Augustine's. The church? Dad, it's getting cold. Come stay with us tonight. Please. Hillel already made up the guest room. I felt something warm spread through my chest. Relief, maybe. Or gratitude. Real gratitude. Not the kind Thelma demanded. Okay, I said. Okay. I'm coming to get you. Stay there. She hung up before I could argue. 20 minutes later, her headlights pulled up to the curb. The next 48 hours moved like molasses and lightning at the same time. Day 1. Nothing. Radio silence from Gertrude and Cyril. I stayed at Yvette's house. She and Hillel treated me like I was made of glass. Brought me tea. Made sure I ate. Asked if I needed anything every hour. Junior sat with me that first evening. Climbed into the armchair next to mine and just held my hand. Grandpa? Yeah, buddy? Are you mad at Mama? I looked at Yvette across the room. She was watching us, eyes red-rimmed. No, son, I'm not mad at your Mama. Are you mad at Aunt Gertrude? Harder question. I'm disappointed. He nodded like that made sense to an 8-year-old. Mama says disappointment is worse than mad. Your Mama's a smart lady. He squeezed my hand. I love you, Grandpa. My throat closed up. I love you too. Day 2, 3:47 p.m. 13 hours left. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Morrison? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. Speaking. This is Patricia Vance. I'm an attorney representing Gertrude and Cyril Morrison. I'm calling regarding the allegations you've made. I didn't make allegations. I filed a factual report backed by documentation. Pause. My clients are prepared to negotiate 48 hours, full accounting, full restitution. Those are the terms. Non-negotiable. Mr. Morrison, I don't think you understand the complexity. I understand that your client stole from me, And I understand that elder financial abuse is a felony. Do you understand that, Miss Vance? Longer pause. I'll relay your position to my clients. She hung up. Yvette looked at me from the kitchen doorway. Was that them? Their lawyer. And? They're scared. Day 2, 11:52 p.m. 8 minutes left. I couldn't sleep. Sat in Yvette's guest room staring at the clock on the nightstand. Digital. Red numbers. They changed so slowly it felt like time had thickened. 11:53. 11:54. My phone lit up. Text message from Gertrude. I opened it. No words, just an attachment. A PDF. I opened it with shaking hands. It was a bank transfer receipt. Dated today. Amount $412,847.63. Destination account. My name. My account number. The one I'd opened 3 weeks ago at a different bank. I sat there staring at it. Then my phone rang. Gertrude. I answered. Dad. Her voice was flat, hollow. It's done. The money's transferred. All of it. Everything that was left. The house money. We refinanced our mortgage to cover it. Took out a second loan. The cars are being sold. The jewelry, too. She let out a bitter laugh. We're liquidating everything. Happy now? I wasn't happy. I felt empty. The DA, she started. I'll call them tomorrow. Tell them we've reached a resolution. Silence. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she whispered. Yes, you did. My voice was gentle. Not angry, just sad. You meant every bit of it. You just didn't think you'd get caught. I'm your daughter. I know who you are, Gertrude. I just wish you knew. I hung up. 11:58. I laid back on the bed and closed my eyes. It was done. If you've been hurt by family and wondered if justice was even possible, subscribe, because the final chapter isn't about revenge. It's about something better, something real. Keep watching. The apartment isn't much. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, bathroom with a door that actually closes. But it's mine. My name on the lease. My furniture. What little I could afford with what was left after everything. I wake up every morning and make coffee in my own kitchen. Not a hot plate, a real stove. I buy fresh vegetables now, not expired ones from discount bins. Small things. But they matter. I haven't spoken to Gertrude since that phone call. She sent a letter once, 2 weeks after the money was returned. I opened it, read the first line. I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did was for the family. I stopped reading. Put it in the trash. Some apologies aren't apologies. They're justifications wearing an apology's clothes. Cyril sent nothing. I expected nothing. Thelma called once, yelling about how I'd ruined her son's life. I listened for 30 seconds, then quietly hung up. Blocked the number. I sleep better now. Yvette visits twice a week. Brings Junior. Sometimes Hillel comes too. We have dinner. Real dinner. We talk. We laugh. We don't mention Gertrude unless someone has to, and even then, it's brief. Factual. Junior's teaching me how to play chess. I'm terrible at it. He thinks it's hilarious. Grandpa, you can't move the knight like that. Why not? It's a horse. Horses go sideways sometimes. Not in chess. He's patient with me. More patient than I deserve. Last week there was a knock on my door. I opened it. Darian stood there. 13 years old. Tall. Awkward. His hands shoved in his pockets. Behind him, parked at the curb, Yvette's car. She waved at me. She'd driven him. Hi, Grandpa. Darian. I couldn't breathe. Come in, please. He stepped inside, looked around. This is nice. It wasn't nice. It was small and bare, but he meant it kindly. Can I sit? Of course. We sat on my couch. The same couch from my old house, the one Gertrude let me keep because it was too old to sell. Darian didn't speak for a long time. Then, I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. I should have asked, should have visited you, should have known something was wrong. I put my hand on his shoulder. Darian, you're 13. This wasn't your job. This was never your job. His eyes filled. Mom won't talk about it. She acts like nothing happened. But I know what she did, and I'm so sorry. I pulled him into a hug. He buried his face in my shoulder and cried. Deep, shaking sobs. The kind that come from somewhere deep. When he finally pulled back, he wiped his face with his sleeve. Can I come visit you, sometimes? My throat closed. Anytime you want. Even if Mom says no? Even then. He nodded, smiled a little. Okay. Uriel came the next week. Then Junior came again. And again. And slowly, carefully, something new started to build. Not a family. Not yet. But the foundation of one. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if Gertrude will ever apologize. Really apologize. I don't know if Cyril will ever admit what he did. I don't know if my grandchildren will ever fully understand what happened. But I know this. I am not a burden. I am not someone who should be grateful for scraps of dignity. I am a man who worked for 43 years, loved his wife, raised his daughters, and deserved better than he got. And when they tried to make me disappear, when they tried to erase me, I didn't let them. I fought back, not with anger, not with violence, with the truth. And sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon you have. This morning, I got a letter. Not from Gertrude, from the trust administrator, the one managing the funds for my grandsons. It included a thank you note, written by Darian. Dear Grandpa, thank you for protecting us. Thank you for teaching us what integrity means. I hope I make you proud. Love, Darian. I read it 3 times. Then I put it on my refrigerator, right next to Junior's drawing of the 2 of us playing chess. And I smiled, because in the end, they didn't just take my money. They tried to take my dignity. But dignity isn't something someone can steal. It's something you choose, and I chose to keep mine. So, if you're watching this, and you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been told you should be grateful for less than you deserve, if you've ever felt invisible in a room full of people who should love you, let me tell you something. You are not invisible. You matter, and you are worth fighting for, even if you're the only one who does the fighting, especially then. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done? How do you rebuild after betrayal? Let's talk, because none of us should face this alone. And remember, gratitude works both ways. They learned that the hard way. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep fighting, keep standing, keep choosing your dignity. You're worth it.